And good Thursday morning to all of you lovely people out there. I hope everyone's having a great week. And I'm supposed to have a special guest today, but he hasn't popped into the stream yet. So I'm not sure what's going on there. He's going to owe me some freaking push ups for being late. That's for sure. And as always, it is Throat Punch. Oh, he just popped in, but I will introduce him momentarily. As always, we're going to do our Throat Punch Thursday video from Grunt Style. And let me add in our special guest. For those of you that know and love him for his artistic and graphics capabilities, the one, the only, Tats.
Oh, good morning, everybody.
Good morning, and thanks for joining in today. I got a whole bunch of stuff I want to talk to you about.
Absolutely.
We're definitely going to start off the day first with Throat Punch Thursday video. Grunt Style. Their website's in the description. Be sure to go over there, patronize their website. They make some really great t-shirts and patriotic stuff. You don't have to be military to wear it, by all means.
So I met this chick at the bar. Yeah? Oh, she was hot. She was just like, hey, you just want to awesome. And I was like, yeah.
Too easy.
Yeah. Oh, hey.
CIB. Oh. Hey, where'd you earn that CIB at?
The PX? What? It's not Stolen Valor. I bought it with my... Oh!
Fuck you.
I love it. I love that video. That is probably one of the best videos I've seen in a long time regarding Stolen Valor. And just a real quick one here. I will... this is the Grunt Style website. And by all means, I am not sponsored by them. They probably don't even know my channel. But go to their site. They've got holiday deals and t-shirts, tanks. They got all kinds of stuff. So I like that. Little Miss What the Fuck. That's awesome. So be sure to go over there, show them some love. Very patriotic, veteran owned. All right, Tats, welcome.
Thank you, sir.
This is going to be a little bit different than usual because you were kind of involved with Kaiser, kind of his inner circle, if I may use that term. Am I correct on that?
Well, I was involved in his trying to exploit his channel for my channel purposes. So, in other words, I worked on the auditing side of things to try to correct some of his bullshit that he was feeding people about the law. And as you already know, when he starts talking about the law and the way it works, he really has no clue. So I would go back and research the different laws, and then I would rebut what he was saying. So that's what I would do.
At what point did you become? Now you are a combat medic, or you were a combat medic.
Yes, I was. Yeah.
So at what point did you start to become suspicious of all of his military claims? I mean, was it prior to his injuries that he explained, or?
Yeah, it was. I always had a bit of a suspicion. The very first video I did about him had to do with, if you're familiar with McDale Air Force Base over by Tampa there. There was an auditor out there doing some video recording, and whether or not you care about auditing, I mean that's neither here nor there. When it comes to Kaiser, none of that even matters. What he was saying about the base in general and about what goes on a military installation and how even a demarcation line for a base and just different things, he was getting a lot of it wrong. I mean, I've done gate guard before, as a young private. I mean, I know how things work in general that way. And just some of the things that he was saying just wasn't ringing true. But he wasn't really talking in depth about military stuff either. He was just going over like a superficial version of what the military is like versus what a real veteran would talk like, where they go into some detail about. It's always with Stolen Valor people, I think it's always a superficial or something that they've heard, maybe his father when he served, or maybe something that he picked up in basic training, but everything was kind of superficial and kind of glossed over the details. And that's kind of where my ears started perking up.
Yeah, and a lot of them do that. DeWitt was really good at that too. I mean, there was one audio recorded conversation he had with a veteran on a phone line, and they were talking about the guy asked him, he said, "Oh, you're jump qualified." And of course, DeWitt, so yeah, I've been jump qualified since I was 18 and did this and that. And then I was 18 series and blah, blah, blah. And the guy says, "Oh, I was military too. I was a 35 Echo or whatever, a
Right.
commo guy." And he explained a little bit about that. And then all DeWitt said at that point was, "Oh, those were different times, different times."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then he completely shut up about the military at that point.
Well, I'll
Because
give him. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
just because he knew that this guy would be able to sniff him out with some of his bullshit.
Right. And well, I'll just give you for instance, and it was one thing we were talking about a while ago, and you mentioned, I can't remember what context this was in, but we were talking a little bit about an RTO, like a radio operator, and I mentioned that little encrypt decrypt book that we used to have. And that's a little detail that a lot of non-veterans wouldn't even know about. And as a matter of fact, probably a lot of them don't even know what we're talking about now. And just little things like that. Something insignificant, really, nothing that doesn't really matter. But just little things, or even mentioning like when he said he went 18 series. Well, first you got to go through selection before you do all that. There's a lot of things in between those types of things. And even when I was in order to be like, I remember, I mean, at least from my recollection, you couldn't even go to Rangers school until you were an E4 at the time that I was in. At least
Yeah.
is what I remember.
Yeah, I can remember the time that I spent at Fort Bragg. I got to Fort Bragg as an E4, got promoted to E5 relatively quick after I got there. And that's because we got the bump. I got an extra 100 points for the cutoff for E5.
Right.
Now, I'm talking about things that nobody understands. However, so when you join the military from the grade of E1 to E4, those are pretty much automatic. So long as you keep your nose clean and you're not a dirtbag,
Right.
you pretty much meet the time and rank and time and service specifications, and you get promoted. Now, when you become a non-commissioned officer, a sergeant E5, which would be the first of the non-commissioned officers rank, well, except for corporal, but
Yeah.
I digress there. Bingo. Once you get to E5, you go on a list. This is an Army-wide list for your MOS, your military occupational skill.
Right.
And you are awarded points for time and grade, time and service, awards, any schools you've been to, and
PT
then the
test.
board, you PT test, and then you stand in front of a promotion board. And they'll have 4 or 5 people on this promotion board. They'll ask you questions and they grade you. And then that is a large portion of those points you get awarded. And I got an extra 100 points just for being on airborne status when I was at Bragg. So it made the promotions that much easier and quicker. Actually, I made my E6 based off of my point score. I was 1 week in, I hadn't even finished in processing in Germany. And I got called up in front of a battalion formation and got promoted. And everybody's like, "Who is this fucking guy?" Nobody knows him. But yeah, I got promoted at like my first week in Germany.
Oh, wow. I've never even seen that before. That's crazy.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it happens.
Yeah.
But
Oh, yeah. I know it happens. It's just crazy. I've never seen anybody just go new to the unit and, okay, by the way, this guy is promoted.
yeah, well, I mean, the list had come out, but the orders hadn't caught up with me yet,
Right. Right.
and they got a copy of my orders when I am processed. So,
Wow.
uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's awesome.
that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Of course it is.
So, what I want to try and do is, as we go through this, I'm going to try and explain some of the military stuff as well. And what I'm going to try and do is just continue this on and get different veterans on here to talk a little bit about the different services: Marine Corps, the Navy, Air Force. I'm
And
going to
by the
try
way,
and
can I just mention my time in service, how long and where I was?
sure.
I'll just say that I served from 92 to 96. Those were my times in service. Just 4 years is all I did. Of course, then there's that inactive reserve. So technically, if I was Wrangler, I would say, yeah, I served for 8 years. You know, but yeah, I did my 4 years at Schofield Barracks, and then I was deployed over to Thailand for Operation Cobra Gold, which is, you know what that is, I think. It's just kind of a training exercise with the Thais and so on. It was great, by the way. And then I was deployed over to Egypt for the multinational force and observers over there for 6 months.
The Sinai.
The Sinai, absolutely. And spent 6 months over there. And then that was towards the end of my time in service. I was an E4, got out as an E4. And that's pretty much it. And I'm proud of what I did. And as a medic, I will say that I had a unique experience, maybe not unique to everybody in the military, and definitely not unique like a combat vet would have, but unique in the way of I've seen quite a few training accidents and things like that are horrific. And even on the civilian side, I responded to some things, dependents and things like that. So I understand. I don't understand combat PTSD because I've never experienced combat like that, but I do understand PTSD related to seeing horrific things. And so when I hear somebody like Kaiser claiming to be what Master Sergeant Retired was or is, and anybody else that I served with, that over the time, I've lost a lot of friends that I served with that I was very close with as a young man in the military. And to take that valor and claim it as your own. And when I always mention Mark Allen, Sergeant Mark Allen, Master Sergeant Mark Allen, his family suffered along with him for 10 years while he died basically after 10 years of being shot in the head after looking for Bo Bergdahl. It's not just the veterans that get the Purple Hearts and so on that suffer. It's the families as well. And even in peacetime, the families make sacrifices for their veteran to be able to do what they do. And anybody that says that serving as in peacetime is not a sacrifice, you're wrong about that too. It is a sacrifice because you spend a lot of time away from your family. You do a lot of shitty things. And by the way, it's like training as an NFL football player and never getting to play the game. But that's it. That's me in a nutshell.
Yeah, and you're right. I served a lot of time on active duty peacetime. I joined in 78 and late 78. And let's see, 83, we had Grenada. I was with the 82nd. And then the first Gulf, I was with Task Force Viper 227 out of Hanau. I was in the process of coming back to the States when Desert Shield kicked off. And I was at 24th ID when Desert Storm kicked off. And that's how I ended up with I didn't get the Saudi ribbon. I only got the Kuwait Liberation ribbon.
Oh, you didn't get the cool Saudi ribbon, huh?
Nope. I wasn't there.
I heard that medal. I heard that medal was actually gold that you guys got. Is that true? The one that the Kuwaitis gave you guys?
There was some controversy over that. They were going to issue them out, and then they gave them all back because they weren't going to give a bunch of knotheads a big hunk of gold.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because my drill sergeant, I remember my drill sergeant because he just got back from the golf and he was kind of on, I think it was TDY or something at one point, and he came back and he showed us that fucking medal. That medal, by the way, is awesome. The Golf War Vet medal. It's pretty cool. It's unlike any other medal that I've seen.
Yeah, that was given to the guys that were there for Desert Shield when they were in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, that
And
was a
then
good cool medal.
the Kuwaiti Liberation Medal came out for the guys that participated in Desert Storm,
Right.
which was pretty much over by the time I got there.
Oh,
I got there in time to pack up all our shit and come back.
did you
So I
suffer
don't-
from any Desert War syndrome type? Because I
You
knew a
know-
lot of guys that I served with that had a lot of that shit.
I had a few friends of mine that had some weird stuff going on. We had one kid, his nuts were rotting off.
Wow.
There was there was quite a few guys that had some issues from it.
Yeah,
I have, knock on wood, the only thing I've got tinnitus, and of course I've got a lot of orthopedic injuries that I have to deal with.
And no
now
Purple Heart, huh?
No Purple Heart.
Oh, damn. You should get Purple Hearts for bad knees and bad backs in the military. Come on. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I'm guaranteed knees and back because I spent time on airborne status. That's almost an automatic gimme from the VA.
Why do you think I didn't go airborne? I saw the injuries those guys get. I used to sit on the range and watch them. And if they don't PLF right, they don't fall right, they're screwed. I mean, there's some pretty bad injuries just from a training jump. A lot of guys.
The first time I fractured my back was in 85, I think. And it went undiagnosed for 10 years. The only reason it got found is a PA, a civilian PA who used to be SF.
A Dr. Light?
Yeah, a Dr. Light was looking at my x-ray and he said, "So when did you break your back?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He says, yeah, right here. You got an old heel fracture. And
what do you mean? The military medics weren't adequate for you, Master Sergeant? We didn't do a good job.
Let's put it this way. At the hospital on Bragg, they kind of get inundated every jump with a bunch of people.
Yeah.
But I had what they call an inversion where the chute was inside out.
Oh.
And I can remember, I don't remember much after, I don't remember anything after landing, but my risers were twisted backwards. So when I was pulling on the front, I was going backward instead of forward. And I was trying to figure out why I had this big knotted twist right there at the capons. And I guess when I pulled them all the way down, the chute reinverted. I was like 30 feet and I just corkscrewed into the ground.
Holy shit. That sounds like what happened to Bear Grylls. I think I heard that's kind of the injury.
Yeah, it was not good. It kind of sucked.
Yeah, and by the way, see the details, those guys? See what he said? Risers and things like that. You don't hear that from people that are fakes. You know,
James K's like, "Oh, your riser popped." No, it didn't pop. I didn't pop a riser.
And by the way,
I'll tell you a story about PLDC. I went to PLDC at Fort Bragg, and if you were airborne during your PLDC field problem, we got to jump, and it was a helicopter jump in a very small drop zone.
Oh, wow.
Out by the airfield.
Was it out of a Chinook or?
I was out of Huey's at the time.
Huey. Oh, wow.
It was either Huey's or Blackhawks. I can't remember. I think the Blackhawks were grounded because that was the time frame where they were having all the stabilator problems and they were crashing.
Yeah.
I
was in during that time where they were kind of going in between that's when I joined, as a matter of fact, when the Hueys was kind of being phased out, but the Blackhawks were coming in. So got to fly in a Huey, which was great, but yeah, scary, I thought. But Hueys.
But we got the jump in this really small DZ, and we all hit the ground, and we got one kid who slipped the wrong way, landed in these big. Now Fort Bragg is covered in these 100-foot friggin' pine trees, and he's hanging way up in this pine tree. So there's a bunch of us at the base of the pine tree, and we're looking up at him, and he's like, "Hey, get me down!" And we're like, "Dude,
Aren't you supposed to drop your
let
reserve or something?
let your reserve out." Now he lets his reserve out, and it's probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 feet off the ground. He was that high up in the tree.
Wow.
And all right, get out of your harness. And about the time we're yelling at him to get out of his harness, we look up, and he's reaching up, and he releases his risers, and he came straight to the ground.
Oh shit.
Boom, broke one of his legs. So needless to say, he was all done for PLDC.
Oh no.
Yeah. Get out of your harness. And he just reached up, and we're like, no, too late.
Oh my god. That reminds me of we had a guy, his name was oh god, this guy. He was a First Sergeant Savusa, and he was Special Forces at one time, but he ended up getting out of Special Forces and was a company or first sergeant at one time. We were over in Egypt, and this dude got up on top of our rappel tower and did a 40-foot rappel off of a 35-foot tower.
Yeah, that doesn't work out well.
Yeah, Australian style. So he was doing an Aussie rappel, and he rubbed I was the medic covering it, and I was sitting there right at the base of the tower, and all of a sudden I see Savusa coming at, I don't know how fast he was going, but he was going awfully fast, and I think he lost his brake hand, and he came crashing face first into the bunch of rocks that were down there on the ground, and we had to debride his forehead. He jumped up almost immediately, though, by the way, which was amazing. I think only Special Forces guys can do that because they have titanium tibias and stuff. And he jumped up, and his arm was all deformed and shit by his chest. And he goes, I'm all right. Get away from me, Doc. I'm all right. And he takes off his Kevlar, and he's got, you remember the clips that you put the leather band around in there?
Yep.
Those clips were fucking embedded in his forehead. And
Nice.
oh man, it was the best. It was the best. It's the best because he made it out and he was okay afterwards. Not really, but kind of. And he had his arm up in one of those fucking casts where you have your arm almost like in a punching position, like you're sitting on an armrest for about 6 weeks. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful thing. But yeah, that reminded me of that. He rubbed his not his Ranger tab, his Special Forces tab, and then took that fucking leap, and that was the craziest. He was like, "I'm going to show you guys how the Special Forces do it." And big Samoan guy.
Yeah, we did Australian rappels when I went through air assault school.
Yeah, we did too. We did that. Yeah.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, air assault school was fun. I didn't go to the real air assault school like you did, though, Master Sergeant.
Yeah, I know. I gotta bust your cherries about that because the air assault schools popped up all over the place.
Right. Yeah. Well, in Hawaii, you got to understand though, and I think a lot of people do understand this. In Hawaii, where you're so far away from anything, they have to have things in there. They even have jungle school there now, apparently.
Oh yeah, it cost a fortune to send everybody to Fort Campbell to go to air assault school.
Right. And so we had our own airborne, our air assault school. We also had RIP, Ranger Indoctrination Program, and I medic for that probably, I don't know how many times I did it, but let me just tell you, I learned more being a medic for RIP than any other thing that I ever did as far as what a medic is supposed to do in an infantry platoon. Learned a lot from those guys. But yeah, great Ranger instructors. I kind of wish that they wouldn't have bastardized Ranger school into a leadership school like they kind of have. But anyway, I'm sorry, I'm taking up a bunch of time.
Well, yeah, it is kind of a leadership school now. I mean, I had a lieutenant colonel I worked for my last 3 years in. He was a leg ranger.
Light fighter school is different from, at least when I was in, we had light fighter school and we had RIP. So we did have both that I recall anyway. My memory could be weird, but it was in East Range. I remember that, Chuck.
Well, listen, he actually went to the Ranger school, and oh, that's weird. Yeah, he went to Ranger school, had a Ranger tab, but he wasn't airborne. So
Yeah, that's weird.
Um,
That's real weird. Actually, there
Yeah,
are some that didn't.
there are
go to
some
jump
out
school.
there.
Yeah, there are a few. Because I know that a lot of the guys that come back from Ranger School say, "Man, I'm so glad I was." Like you were talking about PLDC. In Ranger School, apparently, there's a big ruck march at the same time that they're jumping, and the guys that are jumping don't have to do that portion. They jump, so the other guys get stuck with the fucking road march, I guess. So,
Yeah, I would rather jump than ruck
yeah. Yeah, you're talking
any
to me.
day.
I'm a fucking leg. We walked everywhere.
That because I mean we had to do the big ruck march for the end of air assault school, and at
Yeah.
Fort Campbell, you go around the ASP site,
Oh,
and it's uphill, downhill, uphill, downhill, uphill, downhill the entire way.
yeah. We did the same. We did the same kind of. We had a 12-mile road march, and I think it was under 3 hours. You have to do it in.
That's correct.
And all the damn support people were fucking killing it. The infantry guys, you would think the infantry guys would always be the ones in the front doing it, but it was all the support guys. You know why? Because the support guys have a chance to go to like Bally's Fitness Club every fucking morning, and the infantry guys are busy fucking doing everything else other than that. But it just seemed like all the support, like we had this female that was just like doing it in almost like 2 hours straight. I just jog it because I do Zumba. That kind of thing. And
I started mine off running, and that was a mistake.
yeah, oh yeah.
Because I was gassed out at the halfway point, and I was like, man, I don't know if I'm gonna make it. I made it well under the 3 hours, but it kicked my ass.
That's not an easy school, by the way. It's not.
It was much
school.
harder than airborne school to me.
Yeah, it's not. In what you're saying there too, there's also an academic portion that people don't even think about. You have to learn all about the sling loading, and that's how I failed out the first time. Actually, I failed out on this big bag. I can't remember the name of it, but it was a big cargo bag that we had to find gigs on. So you had to find what was wrong with it. And I didn't. I missed it or something, and I had to sit underneath. We had all the failures went to go sit under the banana tree, so I had to wait for my fucking unit to come pick me up.
We had a kid. We were doing sling load operations with a Chinook, and we were sling loading. I can't remember. I don't know if it was a water buffalo or whatever the hell we were sling loading, but we were doing the sling loading. You had to go up and you had to hook it onto the bottom of the aircraft, and you use that static stick to discharge the aircraft. People don't realize that those spinning rotors generate static electricity.
Yeah, the movies where they just grab the fucking helicopter from the ground.
The airframe. Well, this kid reached up and slammed that thing on there without discharging it and got knocked right on his ass.
Kaiser would do that. Kaiser, see, that's the one thing Kaiser wouldn't know. Kaiser would see a helicopter in the air. If he was like in a hurricane or a natural disaster, the motherfucker would reach up right at the skid and fucking try to grab it or something. I mean, because he doesn't know. He never served, so he doesn't know that kind of shit. When you see him in the movies doing that, that should not happen. They shouldn't be grabbing the fucking helicopter like that and just hanging on.
What's really cool is when you're on MVGs in the desert and you got an aircraft that comes in and lands, and you can see the electricity in the blades as they spin.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's pretty nuts.
We had a guy in Egypt that just reminded me of the NVG thing. We had this guy. His name was Corporal Goebel. I'll never forget this guy. He was such a douche. And
guys,
sorry.
Let me just jump in here real quick. I'm not keeping track of what's going on over in the chat.
It looks pretty calm.
Anyway, no moderators, nobody gets banned, nobody gets kicked, none of that shit. So you guys take care of yourselves. And I haven't even acknowledged anybody, and I'm not going to play Kaiser. But thank you everybody for tuning in. I appreciate it.
And I know my service is a little bit boring compared to most people, but I think it's important to hear a guy like me, just a guy did 4 years and that's it, and I have a lot of people. My dad was a Vietnam vet. My grandfather was a World War II vet. My family goes all the way back to the Revolutionary War when it comes to veterans. And as a matter of fact, I have a great uncle who died on a death march in Korea, in the war of Korea. He died and was listed as MIA for a long time until a guy contacted our family and let us know how my uncle died, which was of dysentery on the side of a road in a schoolhouse, near a schoolhouse. And he was listed as missing in action, and they still haven't found him. But so every person, and this is what I hear from people. People don't fight for freedom anymore and stuff like that. Well, that's not true, because we all volunteered so other people don't have to. You really think that we don't fight, or we don't join for your rights? We join for your rights because you have a right not to serve because of us, the people that joined. And Stolen Valor isn't just about people that are living today. It's about everybody that's ever served since the Revolutionary War. That's what Stolen Valor is about. Every person who paid and sacrificed for this country all the way up to now. That's who Stolen Valor. That's whose valor you're stealing when you're like Kaiser.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, Stolen Valor has been around since forever. There's always going to be the guys that go out there and try and garner some type of admiration, I guess, for being something they're not. And Kaiser's a perfect example. He started basically promoting his channel, basing it. I was in the military. I did over a decade. I got 2 tours, 3 tours, whatever many tours he said. That changed on a weekly basis there for a while. And 2 Purple Hearts, no Purple Hearts, and it's all been debunked. And I always bring Kaiser up anyway, just because we need to keep him in the forefront. That's why I always tag him, Fraud at Wrangler, in the description, just so he knows we're talking about him, just so we can have that little bit of real estate in his head, because he refuses to even, respond to my emails. There's no possible way he would ever come on panel with me, and because he's a coward and a pussy.
Well, I'll tell you another thing, Master Sergeant, what I did last night. And this is what I don't know if people want to go, because I have no life, really. He's right about that. I have no life. But the life that I do have, I dedicate it to assholes like him, because what I've done, what I did last night, I'll tell you an interesting thing that happened last night. I had 2 sock accounts going in his chat last night. Now, actually, I actually had 3. Sorry, I have 3 sock accounts that was going on in his chat, and one of those sock accounts is over 5 months old, and he believes that sock account to be one of his staunch supporters. And I make that publicly known, and he knows that. That way, he always has that doubt in his fucking mind. Who is this motherfucker? Who am I greeting every day in my roll call? That is that motherfucker Tats, right? And I am. He loves me. His wife, or fake wife, YouTube wife, Kimmy, greets me every fucking time with these like huggy emoji thing. And but what I did last night,
that's not creepy at all.
Not at all, not even a little bit. And yeah. And so I am a little bit of a creepy guy, I'll admit. But what I did last night is I had an account that was about a week old that I was using in his chat, and I was friendly with him for a little while. And I was saying, and I'll admit this to even Master Sergeant, I claimed to be a peacetime tanker. Okay. And I said I was a tanker. The only reason why I said that is because I did my basic training at Fort Knox. And I was just being a veteran in the chat. And because I didn't want to say medic or anything that I actually did, because then he would get suspicious. So I said I was a tanker, tank crew member, M1 Abram, whatever. And so I started talking with that guy, Darkus, something or other, Dark Elias or whatever his name is. And apparently he was a veteran as well, right? He's a veteran as well. And he was telling me that he went to San Antonio, Texas. And for God's sakes, I wanted to start talking to him about Fort Sam Houston, but I resisted. And I told him I did all my OSET in Fort Knox and so on. So I was trying to develop a rapport with him because he's one of the mods. So then I used another sock account and I came in and I put him on blast and I said, "Hey, Kaiser, why'd you lie about your military service? You were never a wounded vet," and so on and so forth. And that sock account was named Eugene the Jeep. Now, if you know anything about Eugene the Jeep, he's always sniffing shit out on Popeye. So I used Eugene the Jeep on that. And then as my other guy, who was the tanker vet, I said, "Oh, wait a minute. Is there an accusation that," and I was very friendly and respectful. And I was just like, "Wait, what is this guy talking about? I know you to be, I heard you were a combat veteran. You weren't a combat veteran?" Immediately blocked and put in timeout first and then blocked. And then this morning I went in there with that same account. And by the way, the account that I called, but it's I deleted it now. I always make fresh new accounts. That account was called Chrissy Crack Pipe and I Don't Care. That was that account. And I knew that would appeal to Kaiser because he doesn't like that guy Chris. So I named it Chrissy Crack Pipe and I Don't Care. I have a new one coming online here in a little bit that I'm gonna be using, but I want to always keep him guessing. You know why? Because that's what he did to his supporters. He made them believe a certain thing about him, and then eventually they all people with a brain at least or a conscience were let down by Kaiser. And that's kind of what I want to make him feel, that because eventually I'm going to use that one that he loves. He loves this personality that I act like on there. And eventually I want to fucking just drop the bomb on him to make him feel exactly what his supporters felt when they found out they lied to him.
Well, I mean, look at Dickbag Patrol. I mean, he did his intro for him and, was really involved with him. And then come to find out, the whole thing broke. And it was kind of strange the way it broke too, because I mean, you had already, well, let's talk a little bit about, all right, you had a suspicion. Now you were trying to figure out how you were going to verify his military status. So how did you figure that all out?
Okay, so, and I know there's been controversy around this, and I wish there wasn't, because it almost makes me, it pisses me off is what it does. So I was a big fan of Don Shipley's stuff, okay? And I've been watching Don Shipley's videos since almost the very beginning of his channel. And so I kind of developed a little bit of a relationship with them. I became a member on their actual private site that he does his videos on. And, I've interacted with them a little bit. And I actually verified 2 real Navy SEALs with him. And I've also verified 2 fake Navy SEALs with him that I personally knew, the fake Navy SEALs. And so, of course, I was in lifeguarding for over 22 years, and I had my fair share of fake Navy SEALs come into the areas where I worked as a lifeguard. "Hey, I'm a Navy SEAL. Don't worry about me. You don't have to watch me," But anyway, I have Don Shipley's wife's phone number. And I was so worked up about this because I knew, and Stone Vet called it correctly when he said, a lot of people didn't give me a lot of credibility because I was on the side of the auditor. So a lot of people didn't like auditors, really took my word as a grain of salt, and they really weren't paying attention or giving me any kind of credit or anything because they just knew what I did, and they all believed everything that I said was bullshit anyway. So why would they believe Tat? So I contacted Diane. Do you know who Diane Shipley is?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, Diane's such a sweetie. And so I called her up and she goes, "Hello." And I started talking to Diane, and I told her all about Kaiser and everything that he said. And by the way, Diane is the mother of a combat wounded veteran, DJ Shipley, which is her son. And her son was a member of the famed SEAL Team 6. Okay. So these people, and also Diane herself, and I don't want to sell her short, she was a bosun's mate in the Navy. And she was one of the very first females allowed board ship to do what she did. And I'd imagine her life wasn't too easy going aboard a ship when females weren't really as welcomed in that job and all aboard ship back then. So she had a difficult time, I think, during that point in time. She probably took a lot of she probably put up with a lot of shit. And but anyway, I told her about Kaiser because I wanted somebody like you, actually, like you, Master Sergeant. I was looking for somebody that wasn't me to try to get him exposed. That way, it would add more credibility and stuff like that. But Diane told me, she goes, "Look, honey," she goes, well, first thing she said, she goes, "You know what? I smell something, and it's shit. I smell shit," is what she said. I smell a bunch of shit. And she goes, "But you know what? Don is so overwhelmed with everything, with all the fakes that he has to deal with. He really doesn't do a lot of Army stuff." He says he does. She said he does some Army stuff every once in a while, but really, you want to contact Mary over at the POW network.
Yep.
And so she sent me over to Mary, but in the midst of all that, I already had some interaction with, I believe his name's Steve at the Keepers of the Green Beret.
Yeah, Steve Anson.
Yeah, Steve.
I've got Steve on speed dial.
Yeah, Steve. And I contacted him before I even contacted Mary. I don't know why. It's because I was working with I think it was Georgia Transparency, who had a guy who was a chief of police who claimed to be special forces. So I contacted Steve about him. Steve actually verified him that he was in a special forces unit, and trained with the special forces, but never went through the Q course and all that. And I guess back in the 80s, there was some kind of thing going on like that in the reserves where these guys.
So as far as special forces go, they still have support people that are attached to their units.
Yeah.
When I was at Bragg, they used to have what they call candy stripers that didn't wear they'd wear a green beret, but it didn't have the full flash on the beret.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And
that's kind of what he was, I think.
After the candy stripe thing, then if you were in that unit, you wore that beret with the full flash, even though you didn't have that. And that's when the Special Forces tab came out.
Oh, okay.
About that time frame, because there wasn't a Special Forces tab up until that time frame, and then that identified the person as a actual qualified Special Forces soldier, whereas the support, the what we call clerks and jerks, orderly room guys, supply, that kind of stuff. Even though they served in a special forces unit, they weren't special forces.
Well, this guy was an 11 Bravo, just by the way. I just wanted to tell you that. He was an 11 Bravo, wasn't in support, but somehow he was integrated with a special forces unit. And I'm not real clear. Maybe you know more about that, like what you're describing. But this was in a reserve unit, I believe, But anyway, Steve verified him and said
he could have been slotted for it and just couldn't cut the mustard to go to Q course.
Yeah. But that's how I know Steve. So I contacted him, and Steve kind of gave me the same thing about Wrangler as Diane did, kind of like, hey, look, I just do Green Berets and stuff like that, and I'd prefer to just kind of stay on topic that way. But I did run him through the system, and that was the first time, by the way, somebody told me that he wasn't. I mean, everything else before that, I was just running on instinct. My very first video about Kaiser was just based on my own knowledge of things, but I had no evidence that he was not who he said he was. But as soon as Steve sent me that email back and said he ran through ATARs and he is not who he said he was, I could have done backflips all over my house, because I was so nervous that I was calling somebody out that was a veteran.
And that's the one thing you never want, and that's something that I painstakingly wait.
Right.
Even though I'm 100%, I could be 150% sure that somebody's full of shit. But until I have that paper in front of me that says they're full of shit, I won't call them out.
Right. But I took Steve at his word, though.
And I've said this before, Blind Justice. I came very close to calling him out.
Right.
And thankfully I did not. And it was Steve that verified him as an 18 series medic. Steve says, yeah, he went through the Q course. He spent time in group. I was like, ooh.
Oh, wow.
So glad I didn't drop a dime on him, because that would have just ruined my credibility forever.
And it could, and it's very easy to do that. Like, there was a video that stood out to me with Don Shipley. He did a video about a guy who was walking with Hillary Clinton that was a Navy SEAL, and because of the way he was wearing his cover, his hat was kind of cocked off to the side a little bit. People are like, "Oh, he can't be a Navy SEAL. He's probably a phony." And that guy was a real Navy SEAL who actually did the stuff. So I will never do that again, by the way, because I was so fucking nervous. I don't even know. I don't even know what I would have done if I would have disappeared from YouTube. I just would have.
And you also have to be real careful too that, you know, somebody goes in, they do 3 years, they get out, 4 years, they get out.
Right.
And at some point in their life, they decide, oh, I think I'll just wear my uniform or whatever.
A hat or
They'll-
something, or
Yeah, they'll wear something with like ribbons on it or whatever, and
right.
it'll be all jacked up. And a lot of people will look at it. Oh, look at this guy. He's so jacked up, blah, blah, blah. Well,
Right.
You don't know for sure unless you have the paper in front of you. So, you know, you can say, hey, you're kind of jacked up there.
Right.
And
A ribbon might be out of order or something like
yeah,
that.
I mean, I actually have a picture. When I was in Germany, we had photographs taken, and I got notified like last second, and I've actually got ribbons out of order on my. So I've got this beautiful, you know, profile picture sitting there in my ribbon rack, and I got 2 ribbons backwards.
Oh shit. Yeah,
So
no, I'll
needless to
say,
say, I gave that photo to my mom and dad, and that's in a picture frame in their house, and that's where it'll forever stay.
I'll tell you a funny story about that too. Kind of like that, only probably even worse. I don't know, but I came downstairs. Not exactly. It was never photographed, and I'm glad it wasn't. I had, you know how you send your BDUs back in the day to the seamstress or whatever, and they would
Yep.
sew your stuff on. Well, boy, I wish we had Velcro back then to save my ass on this. I was an E3 at the time, and I came downstairs. I lived on the 3rd floor, I think it was, of Schofield. I think it was 3. Yeah, 1, 2, 3. 3rd story. So I came all the way down, and I was about ready to go do sick call. Brand new private, by the way, E3. I come down to do sick call, and I had my uniforms sewn just recently. I just put on my uniform, came downstairs, didn't really pay attention to my uniform because I just thought, well, it's just sewn. It was all good. I had 2 name tapes, no U.S. Army, just 2 name tapes with my last name on my fucking chest walking around. And they didn't let me go back upstairs. They knew I was embarrassed by it. They did not let me go back upstairs to change it. They made me wear that motherfucker the whole time through sick call.
And there was probably people that didn't even notice it.
There were some people that didn't notice it, but it was, oh my God, I was so embarrassed. I was really embarrassed. And people were like, hey, did you know you have 2 last names on your name tape? And I was like, yeah, I know, but they won't let me go up there because they think it's funny. And so yeah, I was down there, and they kept calling me my double last name is what they kept saying. And oh my God, I thought I was never gonna live that down. But yeah, it was stupid. But I mean, things like that though. Sometimes I've noticed people have their rank on upside down, or maybe one of the dammits come loose if they weren't pinned on stuff. And but like you're saying, the old guys, a lot of the older guys that it's been 30 years, 40 years since they served, and they want to, on Veterans Day, they want to put a little something on their hat or on their shirt or something, just to stand out there at the parade and wave their flag or whatever. And they may not remember how all of that was put together on their uniform.
Oh yeah.
You know,
a lot of the phonies I see, they'll have the beret dressed over the wrong eye.
right.
I lose my shit because I've been wearing berets since before they were Army wide. I mean, I wore one with the 82nd.
Right.
So, you know, that I lose my shit when I see stuff like that. And then I watched the Army Navy game, go Army, they won.
Right.
But during the celebration, I see this major, everybody's jumping up and down, and there's this major there in his dress uniform. and I see one of the dammits came off his bullwinkle wings and they were just dangling.
Oh
I was
no.
like, oh, sir, you need to square your shit away.
Right. By the way,
Yeah.
a master sergeant would lose his shit over any of that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I had one guy. One time, I was a brand new private, and this one master sergeant was, you know what the Irish pennants are, right? The fucking little strings that would come off your uniform. And this one master sergeant, I don't know what it was, but he kept a Zippo in his fucking pocket, and he would chase your ass down, sometimes a few hundred meters, just to burn that fucking string off of your name tape or something like that. This
Oh,
guy was,
yeah.
oh my god.
Everybody had a Bic on him.
Yeah, that guy had. Oh yeah, I always carried one. After that, I carried one myself, and he made it a point that every lower enlisted soldier in the battalion had to keep a notepad, a pen, on their person at all times. A notepad and a pen. I'll never forget that about that guy. But actually, that turned out to be a great thing for a soldier to have, because you never know when somebody's going to tell you to do something, and especially a lower enlisted, your mind's full of
As
mush
an
anyway.
MP, as an MP, if you were one of my guys, you better have a notebook and a pen in your pocket.
Yeah, I always had one. Always had one. They always checked it in our inspections, in our formation inspections. They would check, hey, notepad and pen, notepad and pen, and that was great. You know, they
Oh, by the way, in my gaming status, hell let loose, I've been promoted to first sergeant.
oh shit. now see, but see, like a lot of games though, they're going to also promote you to an officer position eventually. Like
Yeah,
that.
at some point. But the weird thing about this is you go from first sergeant, and after first sergeant, then you go to master sergeant.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
that
kind of
is
weird the
weird.
way they got it set up.
That
But
is strange. Yeah. I mean, they should at least make you like command sergeant major of the army, or for before they promote you to general or whatever they're going to do. But
guess who's asking if I've ever met a real life phony? As I'm not sure what you're getting at, but I did have a good friend of mine. Well, I thought he was a good friend of mine who professed to be a Navy SEAL. Um, I mean, he went so far as to give another friend of mine a Trident pin
oh
as a
no.
thank you. And yeah, it turns out, nope. Needless to say, no longer a friend. I refuse to have anything to do with him. Thankfully, he moved to Florida, and he can live his bullshit lies down there in Florida.
But he had you snowed for a little bit, didn't he?
He had me snowed for quite a while, and
Wow.
he never really talked a whole lot about it.
Right.
And the stuff that he did talk about made sense, but and I forget why I got suspicious on it.
Yeah, but
I guess
Kaiser, for most people, Kaiser talks a good bullshit game. He has a lot of stuff right when he talks, but it's not all right, and that's the problem.
well, anything beyond basic training,
Right.
he's not going to have a clue.
Right. But you know, customs and courtesies, he knows all that stuff. You know, he could definitely tell you how to march, and you know, 9 to the front, 6 to the rear, all of that stuff, you know.
Yep. So some of the acronyms, and you'll hear us use a lot of different acronyms. IDAT or IDAT, it's initial active duty for training. That's what Kaiser was.
right.
He did his initial active duty for training because he was in the reserve and the guard. His initial active duty for training, that's what he did, IADT.
Right.
And during that first 6 months, if they start any type of discharge procedures due to inability to continue, or being weak, or getting stung by a bee, or having shin splints, or whatever friggin' sand in his vagina, whatever his problem was, he technically does not meet the standards as set forth 6 months active duty to be a true veteran. However, somehow he has, and I still think he does get some kind of a VA thing.
Right.
I think he bullshitted his way into that. I don't know how.
I have such a hard time with him calling him a veteran. I really do. I have a very hard time with that.
Oh,
with him.
I won't call him a veteran.
Yeah,
Um,
he's like the guy that gets an honorary status on something, like, oh, you're an honorary professor at our college, but not really. You're not really a professor at a college. You're just. But with God forbid, Wrangler ever got like an honorary position for anything. That motherfucker would get an honorary doctor and he would start doing surgery on people. Like, oh man, just an idiot. Guy's a fucking idiot. I don't know.
So perfect solution, soulmates. Yeah, I've seen what they call frocked E7s, Sergeant First Class, work as a first sergeant before. Luckily,
Isn't it you can work two ranks above your pay grade, right? That's what I was always told.
you can.
Right.
I never had the diamond. And I know a lot of people refer to me as top, and I appreciate that. That's a show of respect from some of the old school military folks. And that basically 3 up, 3 down. Everybody, whether you're a master sergeant or a first sergeant, they call them top because you're pretty much top at company level.
Or an end of an inning.
Yeah, end of an inning. Military police companies have operation sergeants that are E8s.
Oh, that makes sense.
We don't have to be the babysitter of the unit. And as an operation sergeant, I get to keep my fingers in the sauce a little bit more.
How does an MP unit work though? Because I have very little knowledge about MPs. And do you guys? So you guys are like you're a company or a battalion or what?
We've got companies, battalions, brigades.
So just like an infantry unit would be.
Yeah, it's progressed, and the biggest thing is usually an MP battalion, and a company is set up 4 platoons.
Right.
32 people per platoon, but you also have the different things that you do. You might be say Fort Campbell. I was in the 553rd MP company. Basically, we did what they call L&O, law and order. We were the guys that worked the street on base. The 101st MP company would rotate with us, and they'd do a week road duty while we did our training. But they were division support MPs. Those are the guys that will go out and do route recon, TCP points, POW stuff.
Right.
That kind of stuff. All the support that a division needs when they deploy for combat.
But as a new private, let's say if I joined your unit and I was a new private in there, I wouldn't be just sent out on patrol on my own with my own unit and all that, would I? I mean, I would be sitting there for a good while before they would trust me with something like that, right?
Oh, well, usually the new privates, they'll be working a gate and they'll be teamed up with a senior like E4 or an E4.
Yeah.
Or even an E3, somebody that's been working the street for a while until they learn the ropes.
Because that's kind of what we do with our medics. Like you just didn't get a platoon on your own automatically. You had to be out with a senior. Like for me, when I was ETSing, I had to have a guy with me, a new medic taking over my platoon, but I had to show him the ropes for like a couple of months before I ETSed and showed him what to do, kind of thing.
All right, we're coming up on an hour, and I'm going to keep these at 1 hour. But let's see, we have to end it, and you know what's getting ready to be played.
I appreciate it. I'm gonna drop off and let you do your thing, Master Sergeant. I really appreciate it. It was an honor.
All set. Spot is ready.
Oh, wait a minute. You got to see this.
Taker ready.
Okay.
Video is ready.
Yep.
Stand by. And
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
Taser, taser, taser.
That could not feel good.
Okay.
Got you in the ass too, didn't it?
Yeah, one in the ass and one in the lower back, which split the two
Huh.
hemispheres, which gives you a complete and utter lockup from the tip of your head to the tip of your toes. And when that
Oh.
thing hit me, I went right up on my tiptoes and I could not move.
What is the feeling? Because I've never been tased. I've never anything really. What? How would you describe the sensation? Like, is it like a tingle? Like a what
So
is
when
it?
you were a kid, did you ever stick anything in a light socket?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I touched a fence, like a cattle electric fence before.
Yeah. Okay. Think of that over your entire body, only about 3 times as intense.
Oh no, no, no,
Oh,
no.
yes.
No, I'm staying on the right side of the law just because you said that, and not because I'm even a good person, just because I don't want to be tased. I just don't, and plus I don't want to face the treatment that Kaiser's going to get by a cellmate soon. By the way, do you know how much time is on that? Like how much time he's ready to? How quickly should we see him get kidnapped?
I
Possibly.
I don't know any of the specifics. I
Right.
don't know what kind of time he's. I mean, virtually he could be facing a life in prison term.
Right, but
Um,
you don't know how soon, like when they're gonna
I
uh
I do
take him into
not.
custody. No, okay.
I do not. And even if I did, I wouldn't
Oh, I know you wouldn't. I know you
I
wouldn't.
wouldn't put it out there just because there's other people in the background that I have been working with
Got it.
that are, you know, all over that.
But it is happening though,
Richard's like,
eventually.
oh, I tased myself once. Well, one last funny story, and then I'm going to end the stream. So, working patrol, we had a section 12, a kid that had suicidal tendencies, and he ran off from home. He's like 18 years old, and we find him on the street. We stop and talk to him, and everything seemed fine. He's not making any of the correct statements for us to take him into custody on a section 12, which is a mental health thing. And he decides as he's walking away, I'm going to go slip my wrist. So now we're like, okay, time to go. So we grab a hold of him. And as we're getting ready to put the cuffs on him, he decides he's going to bolt. So me and another officer, we're chasing this kid through yards and we're running. And my partner at the time, I hear him start yelling, taser, 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 because he was close enough to get a shot at him. Took a shot with the taser, missed, and then ran into the wires and tased himself. So now I'm running by myself chasing this kid, and I ended up tackling him in somebody's front yard. And I was like, damn, where were you? He says, oh, I tased myself. I ran into the wires. Oh, that's got to suck. Hey, guys, thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate it. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the channel. Give me a thumbs up. Make sure you hit the bell for notifications. This was season 1, episode 2 of Throat Punch Thursday. And I'll be back next week with another one and possibly another guest. So with that, I'm just going to say to everyone, have a happy, healthy day.